Alright, just going to do a quick build video on Sven Strob's new updated state of charge meter. Now I went ahead and put most of these in because that's just too tedious to watch. But I left one out so I could point out that he actually has the half moon notch indicating number 1 for the IC chip. So that's easy to match up. So you just look for the number 1 notch on the chip. And you just line it up, drop it in, and you're good to go. Now these, like I said, I didn't record me putting these in because they can be tedious at best. I'm putting those in and a little time consuming. I didn't want to make a 20 gig video for 10 minutes of sticking IC chips in. So now that they're all in, get a piece of tape just to make things easier on me, and I tape them to the board. Make sure they're all pressed down, still in their sockets. I just get anything that I can set this on because these will actually stick over. And then I set those on there. Make sure all my pins are sticking up. Got my soldering iron nice and hot at 750. And then it's just a matter of going through and doing all of these. I do one on each chip to start off with. That way, in case I knock this thing off while I'm doing anything else, or in the middle of this, I don't have to worry about these chips coming loose. Because even with the tape on there, they can sometimes come out of there. So there. Now I can go through and solder them all. Uh-oh. Created a solder bridge. There we go. And that's one thing you need to be careful of while you're doing this. Is making sure you don't create a solder bridge between these pins because they are close together. Usually when I do this, I'm wearing my jeweler's lenses so I can see a little bit better. But because I have this camera on my head, I'm having to go a little bit slower and a little more cautious. My glasses just don't quite do as good a job as those jeweler lenses do. That part's not difficult, just tedious. Now that those are all on, I'm going to do my 8-position dip switch next. The writing upright so you can see it and read it. It goes right in with no problem. I'm going to put just a little dab of solder on the end of my pin here. And just get a little bit going right there. And that's enough to hold it in place while I set it down. And then go back through and make sure I got a good connection. Okay. Now, here's the one piece that's different from Sven's design for me. I use this straight up and down header with the keyway, and all my boards have the keyways facing out. And if you look real close, you can see he has the keyway facing in there. That's because the right angle header, when it goes in, is set to where the keyway is up. So that's the one thing you want to pay attention to when you're putting your boards together, is how the rest of your board's keyways are oriented, because you want your negative and your positives to match through your whole system. So, my system is just done this way, so I use it that way. Okay, so that much is done. Now I'm going to put my fuse holders on, and you got these solder pads. So what I do is I just go through and solder one side, just pre-tin them, and just one side makes it a lot easier to put these on. I've seen some people go through and put solder on both sides, and then when you do that, you end up with a fuse holder that's not sitting flush because one side the solder cools on already, and so it stays at that angle. Just heat it up, set the fuse holder down. You'll see the fuse holder kind of set in place. And I moved it before it cooled down, so that's going to be a cold solder. So let me heat this back up. Alright, let that set for a couple seconds. You can see the solder change colors while you're looking at it. Probably can't see that on the camera, but that's fine. I'm trying to keep them straight, but that's not necessarily important unless you just really, really are particular about that. As long as they're on the pads. Just heat up the socket a little bit, make sure it gets good connection. And that one did not, because I moved too much. Alright. Now usually when I finish doing this and I solder the other side, I come back and just add a little bit more heat and a little bit more solder to this side. Because sometimes, my hands shake a little bit, and if they do, the connection will be not as great as it should have been. So it's always better to do a little bit extra. And I'll show you that when I get done doing this. Alright, just to make things easier on me, I'm going to spin this around, grab my solder, come back over here, touch the pad, add some solder to it, and you can see the solder go up the side of the fuse holder once it's hot enough. Just like that. And I actually use the solder to help transfer the heat, which is why I put the solder on there as quickly as I do. And like I said, if you watch it, you can see the solder will move from one spot to the other when it's ready. Just like that. Now that those sides are done, I'm going to go back and redo the other sides just to make sure I've got a good connection. Simple as that. Now, the trim pots. We have 14 high and low pots, and most of these pins are going to be bent. Just get them in nice and carefully. On the diagram I got from Spin, they're all facing this way, so this is the way I put them in. Now he is supposed to get me some documentation, which I haven't gotten from him yet, but these are just your high and low adjustments, because when you turn this on, it is going to be way out, and you've got to set it for your pack. And I'll do a separate video on that a little bit later. My main thing was today was getting this done. Tedious. But necessary. And I'm just bending the pins over so that this thing stays. I'm not bending them all the way, just enough so that they hold them in there. And you see I'm using my fingernail for doing this. You want to be real careful because I have had those pins go up underneath my fingernail, and then I turn into a three-year-old crying little boy because that shit hurts. Like I said, this build is pretty straightforward. There's nothing really special to it. Everything's laid out on the board for you on which way everything should be facing. Of course, I'm having problems with this one. Look here. You know what? I'll just come back to that one. Alright. These pins are a little bit out of alignment with each other. That's why I'm having a problem. Good light helps. I don't have the best of light here. But just like that, they're all in. Got my finger on the back holding them. And I'm just going to bend these pins over. Like I said, not all the way. Just enough to hold the pots into place. And now that that's all done, I'm going to take this, flip them over, and they should be sitting fairly straight down. Give myself a little bit extra solder, clean the tip, and I'm going to go through and put a dot on each one. You don't have to do it this way. You can just go through in sequence, get them all done. I just like to get them secured and in place. That way I can take them off this box I have them sitting on to raise them up. Get them back down in the light. And I'll go through and finish them up. Now, of course, I didn't grab my clippers, so I can't clip these off right here, right now. I'm just straightening these out best you can. They're not going to be perfect unless you build a jig to hold these things in place. And that's it, aside from actually putting the fuses in. Now, I like to put the fuses in with the writing up. You don't have to. They are a bit of a pain to get in there. So just a little bit of patience. They don't like me. So it is a tight fit, so it's going to take a little bit of work to get them in there. And they just snap in. Nothing special. I do recommend doing this on a flat surface, because it does take a little bit of force to pop those in, and you don't want to crack the board. And if you ever got to change one of these fuses, these boards are easy to take off. Just take them off, put it on a flat surface, pop the fuses out, pop your new one in, and you're good to go. And make sure they're all seated. And that's it. The board is built. I will do another video here in a little while of the first time power up and getting these adjusted. The last one I built, as soon as I fired it up, all of them were saying they were overcharged on a freshly charged pack. Just had to adjust them down. It's not difficult at all. But that's it for the build. Thank you.